Friends, colleagues, students, a very good morning. Thank you, Ronnie, for being here. I'm usually late into the party, a term that I learned just yesterday, and I keep learning new phrases. A few weeks ago, I was visiting my daughter in Bombay, and she said, "Give me tea," till I figured it's a new way of saying, "Spill the beans," or "Give me some gossip." Now, that is what we journalists actually do. We spill the beans, and more often than not, news comes to us as gossip. However, it is not gossip that Jindal School of Journalism and Communication is the best journalism school in the country. And as a journalist, I shall corroborate that. It is also the sixth school of JGU and was a new imagination to push the boundaries of journalism, thanks to Professor Raj Kumar, our Vice Chancellor, because media and communication education at the time when we started in 2017 required a new vocabulary, a new epistemology, an alternative language of communication, and it was time to bring back that naive sense of idealism which allowed a lot of us to join this profession, that we wanted to change lives for the better. I don't think so that really has changed, even though technologies have changed. And we feel at JGU and at JSJC that we have partially achieved that by curating an in-depth hands-on learning, new age and emerging technology skills in the best traditions of the liberal arts, plugging the gaps in journalism education, communication education, and in practice in the newsrooms. No other time in recent human history, like the COVID-19 years, would bear witness to the urgent and critical role of journalism, media, and communication. We need more and more young minds to do impactful storytelling and ask the right questions. And at JSJC, as we have always said, we teach you to question the status quo. I hope you continue doing that. We started in 2017 with a journalism and media studies program. Last year, we started a film and new media program, and this year, we are launching the corporate communication and public affairs program. We believe that at the undergraduate level, India or even its neighborhood doesn't have many such programs, and what we offer here is global in content and practice. This summer, we will have a fourth batch of graduate students. All of you are here. And we are proud of our students, their initiatives, and our alumni who are either working in diverse fields from legacy media organizations, production houses, social impact sector, or pursuing higher studies at universities across the world. Not only my students, but I am truly proud of our faculty at JSJC and at JGU. You may want to fact check this, but I don't think there is a communication school anywhere that can boast of such a stellar, committed, and imaginative faculty. We have historians, economists, media scholars, social scientists, writers, journalists, film directors, sound engineers, cinematographers, broadcasters, development communication experts, poets, editors, and even engineers. Now that I have given you the tea about Jindal School of Journalism and Communication, I want to invite our founding Vice Chancellor, Professor Raj Kumar, to address you in the spring of 2023 and introduce our special guest, who I hope will give us some Bollywood tea. And the tea about your Vice Chancellor that many of you know is that he's a hardcore film buff. He can watch a full film every day after having done 20 hours of work shift.
Thank you, Kishalai. Well, listen, I think all of you should sit in this, don't stand. There is a lot of space opportunities in the staircases here. So can I request you to make space for, you should have capacity building. Some of you can occupy chairs. There are lots of chairs vacant. So everybody, please find spaces to sit down. Can you walk up there? There are seats all over. Okay. So welcome to this absolutely delightful day. I mentioned to some of our faculty colleagues that it's a very special day because, rarely we have opportunities to find extraordinary individuals who have shaped so many professions, so many lives, and has seen so much of impact in such a divergent and diversified set of fields. Here we have an outstanding person who has shaped in many ways what I would call the future of ethical cinema. The reason I want to call that is that the idea of filmmaking and the film industry, for at least for most parts of since our independence, has been beset with so much of what we in India have historically called black money, and the idea that if you are in the film industry and if you are producing films, you ought to be somewhat involved in all kinds of shady transactions, mostly unaccounted transactions, and that creates an unholy alliance between filmmakers, movie actors, and of course, in the Indian context, historically, politicians and even the mafia. What Ronnie Screwvala did was to bite the bullet and to essentially head-on confront that aspect of film industry and to create a new imagination of ethical filmmaking by bringing those practices of good governance into filmmaking itself, and to be the leader in that field and to make a mark in commercial cinema. It's one thing to produce films that are more in the domain of arts and have a limited audience, but to actually produce cinemas that will attract the attention of the entire country, but also even beyond. And to do that with this commitment to integrity and rectitude is truly remarkable. And what Ronnie Screwvala has done is indeed phenomenal and transformative. But he hasn't stopped there. His new avatar, which it's an identity that he is very proudly wearing, which is that he is the chairman of an extraordinarily successful edtech company corporation called Upgrad. We are very proud to say that we work very closely with Upgrad. We have launched at least 2 degree programs at Upgrad, and we are looking at more. Both the law school and the business school works closely with Upgrad, and he has that big adventure initiative is also a testament to his vision, his leadership, and his commitment and dedication to both institution building and nation building. We have been planning his visit for a very long time. He, of course, spoke at an online event of our university some time ago. And since last few months, I've been talking to him about the idea of visiting the campus. And he, of course, landed up in Delhi yesterday. But I must say that last night he became unwell. And the visit was very close to possibly be cancelled because of his own personal, situation. But it reflects his own character that he decided to make it. And so since morning, we have been on campus. He had a fantastic interaction with our deans. We had a wider interaction with our faculty members. And now this event is largely for our students. So I want to begin by thanking Mr. Ronnie Screwvala, a truly inspiring figure for all of us who proudly says that he never had a plan B because he had to ensure that the plan A successful after several failures. A very important lesson that all of us in our own lives can think about. I want to also raise another important question that what Ronnie has done is truly remarkable. But I also want to think in terms of all of you as young people in this room, including the faculty and students. I was telling Ronnie this morning that this university emerged in the villages of Haryana. You are located in a place called Jagdishpur village in Sonipat. For all the students who are present here, just imagine a decade ago, if somebody had told you that after several years of your high school studies or other journeys, particularly the faculty who have studied in India, studied abroad, almost a very critical moment of your life and career, you will move to a place called Sonipat in Jagdishpur village in the state of Haryana, you would not have believed it. And that's exactly what you have done. So in a way, what has been possible here is an example of what is possible if you can bring together that deep sense of collective consciousness to make a huge impact for the lives around you, but also it reflects the power of an idea. It also reflects the power of an idea for you to actually end up deciding courses that you want to learn because you wanted to do it. I can't help but for all the students of journalism here, while there may have been skeptics, maybe even within your family about what you're pursuing, I can only say that my own journey is also an example of that overcoming skepticism and dealing with the wider imagination of India, at least when I was growing up in Chennai, where almost everybody who is even half serious in studies is expected to become a doctor or an engineer. I can never forget the day when many of my relatives turned up at my home unannounced when they came to know that I am planning to study law. And my uncle famously asked my father that what happened to Raj, he was a good student. And then another aunt said that, to be a doctor, you need to be intelligent, hardworking. He was never cut out for it. But I thought he will at least become an engineer. And of course, they further said that doctors and engineers require serious commitment and dedication to academics. I was never cut out for it. But they were hoping that I would at least become a chartered accountant. And of course, I did not become any one of them. But at that time, and now when I think, what would my uncles and aunts be telling about those who are studying anthropology and sociology and history and political science and literature, unka to number hi nahi aayega. So the question that we all have battled for many years is that how do you create an imagination of a global university with strong sense of interdisciplinarity, deeply woven in both the academic and intellectual culture of an institution, and that is exactly what we do, we try to do every day. And the establishment of the Jindal School of Journalism and Communication, the start of the Film and New Media program, and including the visit of Mr. Ronnie Screwvala is all part of a continuum to think in terms of education and future, including technology and entrepreneurship and cinema in ways that we have not done before. So with those words, I have great pleasure in formally extending a warm welcome to Mr. Ronnie Screwvala. I would like him to now come and share some of his reflections, and then we will move into a conversation and followed by question and answers. Thank you very much.
Just to keep it informal, I think if it's okay, we can just about everyone's relaxed and seated.
Yeah.
So I've been at this campus since about 8:15 this morning. And Professor Raj is true. I had a very bad attack of food poisoning with fever. And about 5 in the morning, I WhatsApped him saying, but in the normal Professor Raj thing, he says, don't worry, I'll get you this, I'll get you medicine. There's a doctor on the campus, which means he's not taking no for an answer. That was the basic idea of that communication. So here I am. But I have to tell you, from 8:16 onwards, I've forgotten about whatever I went through in the previous night, because just the energy, the vision, the passion that one can see here with the incredible faculty, and now when you're walking through the aisles and into the classrooms to see that energy and passion, I don't think it makes a difference whether you're in Sonipat or whatever. Every one of us makes our environment. We make what we want it to be. And I think the credit goes to all of you all and the 10,000 colleagues and students and 1,100 faculty here that have actually made this into a place which is your hub and your memory. Because at the end of the day, what you're going to take away from here is going to be some of the most impactful years of your year, whether you like it or not. In reflection, the memories that you take, just in the bonds that you'd have with friendship, We call it networking as we get into the real world, but actually it is that strong bond of what we want to do. And the ability to link with your 3 or 4 professors, where that one line, that one thought stays with you for a long period of time. It's always the small things in life that make the overall difference. So I'm really privileged to be here, and I think the idea was for me to just make a few opening thoughts and reflections from where I sit. And I was talking to the faculty. So, I mean, I think there's a good confluence of why I'm here, because I surreptitiously and accidentally walked into media as a career when I wanted to be an entrepreneur. It wasn't by strategy. If it wasn't for that, I may have been a lawyer. And even today, when I speak to a lot of colleagues, when I, the ability therefore, they say, I think you should have actually been a practicing lawyer rather than coming here and talking to us, because I think, and the ability for what I'm doing in education. And if I see some similarity between the 3 vocations that have connected my life, between law, media, at the end of the day, it is about the ability to connect, the ability to communicate. You can do reefs of research when you're doing law. You need to do a lot of history. You need to do a lot of case studies. But at the end of the day, you got to be able to communicate that. Even if you're a solicitor and you're going to make a report, or if you're going to argue in court, you are thinking on your feet. And I think in whichever spectrum of work you go into is future, these are the cores of what I think you're going to be able to do, is the ability to be able to communicate, the ability to be able to connect is going to make an incredible amount of difference between how you present yourself and your ability to go forward. So just my personal narrative, I think when I wanted to be an entrepreneur, it was at a very, very early age. We didn't have a prime minister who stood out and said, start up India and everything else. This was a long time back. And obviously, even today, parents are a bit of a question mark when it comes to somebody wanting to start something on their own, right? Okay, like, abhi yaar, beta, you haven't got a job, just get a good job. Then after 3-4 years, you do that. And I think my dad and I, when I had the conversation, like a good Parsi family dining room table, everyone is quite broad-minded about things. But I think his conversation was, why don't you go out, do your MBA or do your chartered accountancy and then start that? And I think my reflection at that early stage in my life, where I said, if I do that, I'm already having a plan B for my career. And if I have a plan B for my career, the chances are I'm not going to go for it for plan A. And I think, now it's not a sweeping statement. There are many things, especially in management schools, that they teach you need to have a plan B for everything else. But in life, if you can take the North Star of, when you have that conviction, glass ceilings are glass because they're meant to be broken. They're not meant to be just reached and then go sideways. And I think for me at that very early influential stage in my life, my ability to be able to focus on a plan A and then stick with your conviction, I think is part of the reason why I'm sitting here having this conversation with you all. The other 2-3 things I'd like to say before we start up is, you all should feel very, very blessed. If you look around here, you need to have that reflection that you're in one of the most prestigious institutions and schools, not just in India, but around the world. You are blessed to be here. You are blessed to have this choice of this opportunity. And if you look around you, there is at least 100 people for every one here that does not even have that opportunity. And I can see that here today with the younger generation, where the element of starting to build empathy and starting to build a connect with the people who don't have it, and the ability to give back has to be at a very early stage. And I think today when people talk about some of the work we're doing in philanthropy, I think philanthropy firstly is a 19th century word, because it just means you need to have gray hair, you need to have a bank balance, and you need to have retired. And none of that is true. And I think when we started our very first outfit, when we started a company called UTV at that stage, we had a 10,000 square foot office that we rented. We didn't have too much of surplus income. And the first 1,000 square feet, we opened a creche and an orphanage. And the 30 and then 300 people who came to join us, they wouldn't go home. At 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, everyone would gravitate down to this orphanage and creche. And that's when the culture of the organization came about. So I would say to everyone here, please feel blessed. Reflect on that many times in the year of what you're doing and see how you're going to be able to give back in a small way. Most people are confused as saying, oh, can I make an impact? Can I make an impact? I remember when we were launching Rang De Basanti, and there were 10,000 students in Delhi University. There was Amir, Khan, myself, and the director, Rakesh Om Prakash Mehra, sitting there with those 10,000 students. And it was a very skeptical lot of people who kept saying, yeah, all that's fine, but can I make a difference? And if some of you all have seen the movie, there's a connect there from that point of view, which I think connected with the youth that felt I could make a difference. And I think today more than ever, don't look at yourself in the singular, because it's the singular that can make the difference. And most of us actually reflect and feel, yeah, I don't think I can make a difference. But you can, and you will. And I think, therefore, the ability to be able to be confident and have that conviction is very, very important. So just some broad thoughts that I wanted to leave you all with, and we can jump straight into this.
All right. Thanks so much, Ronnie. And I'm tempted to actually call this the Raj and Ronnie show. So welcome to it. And you know, the only time that I ever got to act in a film and I blew it up was Rang De Basanti, because you know, you tied up with NDTV, and we were supposed to go and do it. So I got my news editor call me up and say that, okay, you need to reach this place, and you need to, you know, Amir's crew, and they're there, and you're supposed to be the journalist who's going to cover. I first said yes, and then suddenly something struck me, and I said, why should I act as a journalist? I am a journalist. so I refused to go, and I told my news editor, I'm not going to act as a journalist. Well, someone else played my part. I didn't get a chance, so that was my little chance gone. But Ronnie...
And the learning was? What's your learning in that? That you let this golden opportunity go because of your perception of what you wanted to be seen as versus whatever else. I don't know what everyone else feels in the room about that.
So Ronnie, starting with you, and I'm sorry, I'm going to start with films, and I'm going to end with films, but we will talk about upgrad in between. You know, Shah Rukh, one of your heroes, seems to have done it again just when many of us thought that his days are over. Have you watched Pathaan?
Yeah, I have.
And what are your...
What's my personal view of Pathaan? I mean, I think it's a nice, good Siti Bajao movie. And, you know, I don't know, this is a journalistic school. I don't know whether anything goes out from here, so...
How many of you have watched Pathaan?
There, see? No, I believe movies have their own karma. And I think this movie was not much more about the storytelling. And I think it's just everyone wanted to get out there and give a pump up to an actor who they believed had gone through a lot of rough times in the last 1 to 1.5 years. So today, I think the success of Pathaan is much more a process of giving Shah Rukh a leg up and a Shah Rukh movement than a benchmark in Indian cinema by any stretch of imagination, would be my personal point of view. And by the way, on a gross indexed point of view, Sholay, if you look at it recalibrated from 1985 to 2012, and the rupee then and the rupee now is still above the box office of Pathaan. Just because you need to recalibrate price of a rupee and 7 to 8% inflation every year. So if Sholay collected 35 crores of rupees in 1985 or whenever it necessarily did, today it would be about still 600 crores versus anything else. So,
and is anyone replacing Shah Rukh in the industry soon? Do you see any of faces?
Yeah, sorry, did everyone say no? There's a hardcore, I love to be careful about what I say. No, we've done some incredible movies together, from Swades to a mad movie called Chennai Express to many others. No, I think the beauty about Shah Rukh is his charisma, right? And I think it's the best example of you can have whatever you want in terms of your ability to act, looks and everything else. But when you have that charisma, which I mentioned, the ability to connect, the ability to be able to communicate and just be charming. And I think his ability in real life to look at you one-on-one and make you feel right now you're the most special person in the room. And he's taken that personality of his to the big screen. So that's why the connect with the audience is not something that can be easily done. Versus Salman, who's born, versus Amir, who's evolved in a very different manner. And I think today, the younger generation, I think the challenge is not most of us really want to spend 3.5 hours in a movie theater, right? We don't have the patience for that. I think the patience has gone down quite a lot. So I think that recalibration of what audiences want is going to be the key need.
Do you actually play chess with Amir?
I did. It's very frustrating to play anything with him because he's such a perfectionist that he'll drive you potty. And you think you want to do it for 1.5 hours, the chess game lasts 6 hours. And there's a lot of conversations that go in there, then you break for lunch and whatever else. But yeah.
Raj, who is your hero? Have you watched Pathan?
I actually want to, and Shah Rukh Khan is clearly my hero too. And it resonates with so many of our. But I would say Shah Rukh Khan laid the foundations of a romantic in me. Some of the earliest movies I watched, including Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge and Dil To Pagal Hai, both of those movies had a profound influence and impact on me personally. And I can say that I continue to be a great fan and admirer of that genre of his movies, not so much the Dawn 1 and 2 type of movies which he has done. So he is versatile. So yeah, absolutely.
But he didn't give up non-vegetarian for romance, Raj, just the way you did. Did you know about this? You don't know this trivia about your Vice Chancellor? Oh, he used to eat everything that moved in this planet. And then he fell in love. And then he gave up eating the good things in life because the lady did not eat and she was vegetarian. So to respect her taste, and till this day he's not tasted that. And 24 hours before he gave up non-vegetarian, Raj went to the famed non-vegetarian joint in Old Delhi, and till midnight. I'm not very sure till midnight or not. I'm just making that up, but till he couldn't eat anymore, he just went on eating because he says it's the last non-vegetarian meal of my life.
Yeah, well, it was 1998. I was a student at Delhi University, and I just met the girl who is my wife now, but she's a Jain. And as a family, we were complete non-vegetarians. I would have, by that time, I was eating everything that flies, runs, jumps, swims, and I quickly realized that she would be happier if I'm a vegetarian. So I decided that I'll become a vegetarian.
Was there a deal breaker?
No, it wasn't. She doesn't say it would have been a deal breaker, but I quickly realized she would be happier. But even now, since the last I had non-vegetarian food in '98, and I have not tasted non-vegetarian food, but I kind of publicly say that I have no religious, moral, or ethical commitment to vegetarianism. It's purely romantic. She'll be happier if I remain a vegetarian. So to that extent, it's a different,
By no means am I propagating vegetarianism. Ronnie, you worked with a variety of characters, and one of them, of course, was, I think, the best that Bollywood has lost, Irfan Khan. How does Irfan Khan compare to the others? I know it's a little unfair question, but just the...
Yeah, no, I guess comparison is the wrong word for most of life, I think, because each one is very unique in their own. And this is not just in the creative talent space. I think in almost everything that you do, there is a certain uniqueness to each one. But I think Irfan just brought a diversity to the role playing that was, from an India point of view, he put it much more international, right? I think he's done more success internationally as much as he's had domestically. And I remember because the last movie he did was actually with us. It was a film, and he came to our conference room at our Worli office and watched the rough cut, and then he took me outside and said, "I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do promotions for this film because last 2 days I've had this check on the stomach, and I think I'm going to have cancer, and I'm going to the UK, and I don't know when I'm coming back." And but from that point of view, I would say he's an extremely diverse method actor.
And he also changed the way the audience looked at Bollywood. I mean, Bollywood started casting someone
like... quintessential hero, yeah. But I think today, yes, you will have that hero, but today I think people want to see context and perspective. I don't think everyone... Hero is a very different definition today. Not everyone has to take their hands out wide and do a song and dance routine, right? So I think just your ability for aspirations, the people that mold you, the people that influence you today, I think is changing for everyone.
Let me move to education because that's what you want. But can film be a form of education, Ronnie?
Film is a very powerful point of view. I think the ability to, the craft of storytelling actually is much more disciplined than most people would do that. Now, a storyline like Pathan may not confirm that that's what you need to do because it doesn't have that kind of thing. But the drill of being able to express, and that's what you're doing in a conference room, that's what you're going to do in life in any case. Your ability to make your CV and be able to bring it to life is going to be the difference between a good job and a great job. It's going to be a difference between a good opportunity and a great opportunity. So it's not about film, because the normal thing when people think about film is fiction. But actually today, thanks to OTT platforms, thanks to the way audiences have responded to that, I think people want realism. They want to have a connect. And once or twice in a year, you don't mind leaving your brains behind and just go out and get entertained, because that's what cinema in the big screen is about. But because you're now consuming by so much choice that you put on yourself, the power of understanding what it means to storytell and apply that to your personal life, I think is very, very, very strong, and something everyone should reflect on.
I have a question. Yes. Ronnie, one of the things that I've always wanted to ask you particularly is that the last decade in particular, maybe even 5-6 years, the film industry that was historically led by Bollywood has come to face interesting challenges and perspectives, especially from certain aspects of the South Indian film industry. Clearly Bahubali and RRR now, but also if you look at even the ones which are earlier Tamil films and few others, there is a new imagination whereby movies are being translated or redone. Original Telugu/Tamil movies are done in Hindi. So my question to you is that, is Bollywood beginning to face a potentially existential crisis, or it is just a phase of movie development whereby other language movies are increasingly becoming accepted across India, and there is a possibility of an Indian film industry emerging?
So I think every sector will go through an existential crisis if you don't think out of the box and innovate. And I think definitely Hindi cinema specifically is going through that. South Indian cinema has been phenomenal in its consistency, in its discipline, in its homework, and it being as a serious industry. So because of that, it hasn't been noticed, but now it's getting noticed. So it's not like they're doing something different. It's because I think that the Hindi cinema part has just for the last 5 to 8 years or 10 years just not innovated, taken an audience for granted in many ways, and therefore you're seeing the response. And the third is, the best of script writing and storytelling today is happening on OTT platforms, the best of it. And I think all of us will relate to that, to whatever you see. So there, the complexity of characters. And at the end of the day, cinema on the large screen was a little bit about storytelling, and OTT has made you realize that characters, getting into the skin of a character is more important sometimes than the storyline. And if you all recall and reflect on any of the last 2 series you may have seen that you liked, Indian or Korean or American, it'll be about characters. So I think lack of innovation in any sector will get you to have a catharsis. And I think it's not last 2-3 years, it's been a decade of taking it for granted. It starts with taking it for granted, moves to arrogance, and then realization takes the longest time.
Raj, I also wanted to ask you, because I was asking him, can film be a form of education? But when you thought of starting a journalism school and having the film, what was in your mind? I mean, you had a law school, you had a business, I mean, you had things going. Why journalism then?
Well, thank you for that question, Kishalai. Well, you see, one of the things about a comprehensive university ultimately ought to be that we should be looking at what are the kind of things that people want to learn, and we should be providing opportunities for that. But there is a social responsibility attached to any institution building effort. And honestly speaking, the establishment of the journalism school was also part of that effort, whereby I was beginning to feel uncomfortable in the way the entire media industry was evolving, and the opportunity to have journalists who are having the ability to speak truth to power, but also to do it with a sense of responsibility was something that we were facing significant challenges. So one of the things that we began the journey was, how do we create and reimagine a journalism school, not so much as a vocational training and a skills education, which I think is important to all disciplines, but whereby you combine the knowledge of disciplines, including sociology, political science, history, literature, economics, law, and then to have journalists who can have a wider impact on society. I mean, that is the larger role that universities ought to be doing. And the film and new media program was a natural transition to the kind of interest that students have. I mean, I have given over 12,000 talks across India, and mostly talking to high school students. And the kind of, I mean, I grew up in a society where becoming a doctor or an engineer is the only good thing that one can aspire to do. But young people of today have wide-ranging options and opportunities, and film and new media is something that they will pursue as a, not just as a lifelong career option, but also something that they will do it with passion.
And Ronnie, in the film program also,
I just want to add to that, because I think for a lot of people here today, the career options, I think part of it is also whether you take weightage to that. And I'll give you an example where we had a tie-up and we were wanting to send, because football in this country is still not a trained sport, right? I mean, we have an ISL league, but if you see the sports people there and the level of this thing, the training is not to that level. And that's because you need to commit and you need to start young. And we had a great opportunity, and we enlisted about 100 boys to actually go for, it was boys, it wasn't girls at that time, but to go across to Germany for 2 to 3 years of training. And when I sat with 100 parents there, their biggest question was, yeah, this is all nice, but is it there for a career? And I think for design, for the elements of journalism, media, and many, many others, that is going to make such an impact in the 21st century and 22nd century for all of you all as the career options. You need to be clear why you're doing what you're doing and commit for that, because it doesn't mean that you need to be in a place like Dr. Raj said about engineering or whatever else, where there's already a proven track record of jobs, because you're going to stand out now. 21st century is about standing out. It's not about doing the same thing everybody else is doing. You're not going to be able to do that. How do you stand out? How do you have that conviction? And then go for it. But figure out the careers you want to do, stand by the conviction, and make it into a career option for you. And it won't be very well written in what you want to do. But that's the only way it's going to progress.
You know, just to go back to the film industry, I'm very curious that is there any awareness or recognition or even discussion within the industry that why is it that there's less than 5% of women filmmakers and producers? I mean, there's an article in the Indian Express this morning.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's 5%. I think I think there are a lot of women directors. I would say out of the 84 movies we did in UTV, and then about the 20 that I've done in RSVP, I would say almost 30% have been with women directors.
Producers?
Well, no, maybe not. But that could be for very different reasons. I don't think that's, I mean, I know I come in with a producer tag, but I don't think that's the pivotal part. That's something that you're a catalyst in the sector. So there I don't think gender needs to be there. But in the creative aspect of director and performance and storyteller and scripting, there is a good, I would say, 70-30 balance today.
You know, you started well ahead of time in terms of the conglomerate that UTV was in 1990. I mean, India did not have that kind of stuff. I mean, Red Chilies and all came much later. And you brought all of that under, technology and storytelling and production, software under that. And then, do you really dream with your eyes open? By the way, that's the name of his book. You should check it out. Do you really dream with your eyes open?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, there's no connection between the two. But yes, I think it is extremely important that you need a vision, but you need a practical plan with it. Not even just an execution plan. You just need to have your feet on the ground at all times. Because when you're dreaming, you've got to be able to correlate that across the board. So I think that's pretty much where. I think the other thing I would say for the approach is, in India, the opportunities are there when you think at scale. You've got to be able to solve things or create things at certain scale. And therefore, for me, the idea, I've been obsessed with scale, whether it's in our not-for-profit and social thing in Swadesh or in Upgrad or in UTV, which I sold out to Disney. The obsession on all of them was scale. Now, that's my personal choice and preference, because that's just how I think. Each one can have a different, there's nothing wrong with boutique, there's nothing wrong with a single operation, but that's what it was.
Raj, how do you dream since you don't sleep much?
He watches the movie first, right?
That's right. No, well, I mean, most of my adult life, at least professional life, has been with regard to envisioning the idea of building a university. And I was very fortunate to have met our benefactor, Mr. Jindal, and shared the vision. But I think the more we are part of education, I do dream about the extraordinary possibilities that India can hold for the future. I mean, think about the fact that at least over 1,000 years before Oxford and Bologna, Indian subcontinent had institutions such as Nalanda, Takshashila, Vallabhi and Vikramshila, where what we currently call as interdisciplinary holistic education was not only prevalent but flourishing, where we had both students and faculty from around the world participating in dialogic education, adopting innovative forms of pedagogy that we are now debating in the world's topmost schools of education. So if Indian civilization can provide so much of leadership to the world at large over 2,000 years ago, I don't see any reason why we cannot retrace that history and do all those things to reimagine education. I was also deeply inspired more recently, something that I encourage our students and faculty to watch. There is a very interesting, I think Sony Live has the documentary, or rather, no, more than a documentary, it's called Rocket Boys. A story of both Vikram Sarabhai and Homi Bhabha, how they returned from Cambridge University 100 years ago, and essentially along with C.V. Raman, who had already got the Nobel Prize, they were all working in the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, laying the foundations of Indian science. So if those things can happen with so little resources, then why can't we do much bigger things? And I think the scale part of it is important to have a larger impact. But I do believe that the biggest challenge for India, and this is where Ronnie's work is important, is that nowhere in the world it has been possible to marry quality and quantity, especially in education, but also others. Because if you look at the world's best universities, be it Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Columbia, Berkeley, you pick up anything, they were all created, and even IITs and IIMs, with the single most important objective, which is to make it exclusionary. Inclusion is not at all part of their vision. It is all about finding ways how we can reject students. In fact, the rejection rate is the criteria for determining prestige and reputation. And unfortunately, we are no different slowly when it comes to several of our schools, and I do believe that that's going to be the case with us generally. But where we can provide an alternative imagination is about how can we deliver high quality education through online space in an asynchronous manner with lesser cost and not compromising on quality. That is exactly what Abgrad and Ronnie is trying to do, and this is going to be one of the most democratizing impacts on the future of education.
You know, Raj and Ronnie, both of you believe in hybrid and online education and quality education. But one of the greatest challenges in our country has been the last mile connectivity. Access is still going to be a problem. How do we overcome that?
I don't think it's that big now. I think what has happened between Jio and 5G, whatever else, I think, look, during COVID in Maharashtra, where we were working with about 2,200 villages in Raigad and about another 1,000 in Nashik, on the schools, we started what we call digital Swadesh, and it actually started connecting. And now it's almost become, so from farmer groups to women welfare and village development committees to classes for extracurricular activities in villages, they went to a hub. So I think that ability for us, we can't be the third largest economy in the world and still have a connectivity problem. So I think we're past that. We are past that. And I do agree that today, right now you're at a stage where you're starting your curriculum. There is definitely going to be a stage where when you throw up your graduation hat, you're not done. You're going to have to go back to some sense of learning, because at least half of what the future holds in terms of work opportunities, business opportunities, job opportunities hasn't yet been taught or identified. And that's going to happen in your career. So when you throw up that hat, know that from here onwards, that's temporary. You're going to have to, you may not go back to school, you may not go back to university, but you're definitely going to go back in some form for learning. Therefore, the context of exclusion versus inclusion, I think online is the epitome of inclusion, where out of 100 people, unless you're not ready for a particular course, 90 will get selected. In an offline, out of 100 people, 2 will get selected.
I just had to add something to what Ronnie said. So, I mean, listen, in India, you need to be optimistic and hopeful. Otherwise, you can't be here. One might as well move to Sweden or somewhere. So, on the online part of it, I do believe that government can do a lot. I have seen some data which UNESCO data shows that 1.5 billion children around the world were removed out of education during the pandemic. And there is a very strong risk that they will never be able to come back. And that 1.5 billion, lot of which are from India. I also saw that only 18% of Indian households have effectively 3 things that are needed for a online education. First, reasonably working electricity. Second, reasonably working Wi-Fi connection. Third, reasonably working equipment. So 80% of the households do suffer from a major challenge of access when it comes to online education. Now this 80%, I'm not suggesting that they will be better suited only physically. There are numerous challenges there as well. If at all anything, online can actually ensure greater access. So in a way, the last point is there's a huge public policy intervention there, which is to create that kind of electric connections and Wi-Fi connections and effective internet corridors so that we can provide greater access.
Before I open it up to you, Ronnie, could you tell us a little more about Swades? Not the movie.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd like to, but I did a play long time back, it was about the priest, and I was playing the junior who gets trained to talk at the pulpit, where the sermon is given out there. And the play was very well scripted. And, the person who was teaching me at that particular point in time in the play says, how do you know when you're connecting with an audience? And as someone who's giving a pulpit talk, how do you do that? And the line at that time, of course, said coughs. Like if people are coughing too much, you've lost their attention. I think that today has gone into the internet, right? I mean, now it's phones. Because I think if everyone's looking down, then you're not necessarily making notes, but you're able to do that. So I think my first challenge is to get the attention back from everyone here. I think in a nutshell, what I said in the beginning, you're never too young to give back. My daughter finished her film school in USC, came back, did 100 years of Indian cinema that went to the Cannes Film Festival with Shekhar Kapoor and Rakesh Om Prakash Mehra. She walked into my room and said, I'm done. I don't want to do cinema. I want to move on. And after that, she's been in the not-for-profit space of her own, even though we have our own family foundation, which is the Swades one. And when I've seen the people that I interact, and she runs a mentor-mentee program. It's just young professionals or working professionals that mentor a street child. And it starts with 1 day a week, but actually is built into a full movement. It's right now in Mumbai, whatever else. The point I'm making here is that for everyone, again, going back to the original point, we all can make a difference. There is no such young age or old age in which you need to necessarily give back. In India, the problems are multifold. And yes, unfortunately, the pandemic has made the poorest even more poor. And the challenges are humongous. And we are an execution foundation and our Swades Foundation. What we've taken is a holistic approach where we go to an entire geography, which is large. This time we've taken about 2,200 villages in one area of Maharashtra, another 1,000 in another part of Maharashtra, which is Nasik. We work with them in water sanitation, health and education, and then livelihood. And the biggest challenges that we find there is first building trust. You think when you want to give back, somebody's always ready to take it on, but actually it's not the case because most people are suspicious. They're also suspicious because every time somebody's gone to their village for a vote, said, I'll do this, I'll do that, you'll get a this, you'll get a that, and then they're gone for 3 years and 4 years. So how do you build trust when you're giving back to people? Down to livelihood. We thought, okay, if we can give them opportunities, but when somebody doesn't understand the power of what from earning 50,000 rupees of annual household income if I want to get to 2 lakhs rupees annual household income? What does that mean? How will that change my life? So financial inclusion is something that I think for at least 50% of the 600 million people, they don't really even understand the power of what it would be. So the challenges are very deep. And I think most of the insights came for us where we had in Mumbai, I wanted to get 100 schools to adopt 100 villages. Finally, I managed only 20 schools to adopt 3 villages each to get to 60. But when I go and do those workshops with those, first they went for 1 day and would come back in the evening because it was a 2.5 hour ride. And then the next time magic happened, they said we're there for 3 days. Because we're not there to paint a hospital bed, and we don't want to do all these superficial stuff. We want to go out there, we want to understand that. And I can tell you the learning and impact that happened to those people who went out versus the people that they impacted there was mind-blowing and incredible. So the problems are complex. Minds like yours can actually change it. You need to actually walk the talk and be on the field to be able to change whatever mindsets you want to do in whatever small way. And there is no such thing as that, is all I would say.
Thanks. Okay, now questions. Okay. Raise your hand so that and grab my eye. Yeah. Okay. Mahima first. You go.
Is there any? Do you have a passion project that you want to work on but haven't got around to yet? So I actually have 2 questions. This is the first of them. The second.
Why don't you introduce yourself first?
Yeah, I'm Mansi Ratnesh. I'm from Jindal Global Law School. So the first is to ask you if you have a passion project that you haven't got around to working yet. So could you tell us a little about that? And the second is,
could I have your autograph, please?
That's not a question.
That's not a question, but yeah. I think when you look at identifying what's a passion project, I think you get on with it in a very different manner. So today, I don't think today I'm doing something that I've not been able to do. I think over a period of time, whether it's been in education or whether it's been in the social and welfare or the philanthropy part or whether it's been in media, these are 3 sectors where I've been very active. Yeah, I mean, in a sense, in education, would I like to do something more in a skilling or whatever else? Absolutely. In a storytelling, would I like to talk about a specific movie? That would always be the case. But I don't think it's an identifiable one. I think normally when you get into the moment of it, the last thing you need to have is regrets. So you just go out and do what you necessarily want to do. And the other one we can do offline, yeah.
Yeah, Mahima.
Yeah.
I thought the days of autographs have gone, right? I mean, who takes an autograph anymore? I thought it's always a selfie now. So.
Hi, sir. I have 2 questions for you. You can answer either of them or both.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'll. So my name is Mahima. I work in admissions in the university. First question is, so you said like how Bollywood hasn't picked up that much as the South Indian movies have, the discussion we were having. So one of the things I feel like we need to include more people in the industry from the social sciences sector. Because there's a lot of talk even going recently about that how even basic things like the disparity, income disparity, and even the mental health representation is not that great or not even at par in Bollywood. So do you feel like this is something that hiring more from the social sciences backgrounds would be something that would bring a change into the industry? And my second question is, if you were to make Rang De Basanti with this scenario at the moment, what is something that you would replace or you would like to add in that movie?
Right. No, I like your second question, but that's good. So just to the first one, yes, I think in Hindi cinema today is one of the most insulated industries. So it doesn't make a difference what. We have to helicopter land very diverse thinking. The problem is it's a very insulated industry. And what happens to insulated industries anywhere? It's like if there are 5 of y'all, but if 5 of y'all are so clear, you finish each other's sentence. It's a nice way to go about it because you're meeting in a room, but actually it's lousy because there is no new thought that's coming. You don't want to work constantly and have a group of people where everyone finishes each other's sentence, right? Because that's great for the first 2-3 months, but then you haven't got any fresh thinking on anything that you're doing. So today, that element of finding people who can actually shoot targets and burst the balloons is missing, and that's when an industry stagnates. So it's a very insular industry. I don't have a specific. When you're telling a story, there's a certain connect that it makes, and then it's either evergreen or it needs to get updated in that sense. And I think to a certain extent, that particular time that talked about the background of youth really having an angst that wanted to feel that I want to make a difference is really why in 2006 that movie is relevant. But if you watch it today, it's not irrelevant, because to a certain extent the passion of that and the fact that no nation is perfect, as Siddharth in the movie says, and the AR station is, you have to make it perfect. And that to me is a reflection of anything today. That is an evergreen statement of a movie that says no one single thing is perfect. We have to work to make it perfect. The problem today, which hasn't changed since 2006 to 2023, is criticism. Because what does it take for us to criticize? It takes 10 times more for us to comment on what works well. And I think our reaction first to pull people down is always a much better reaction. It gives us a better sense of satisfaction. So I think that message is still very evergreen today, that whatever you want to do, nothing is going to ever be perfect. You have to make it perfect. That would be a sequel.
Thanks, on. I'll come to you. Let the microphone is still hanging there. Yeah.
Thank you for your talk, Mr. Screwvala. My name is Rahul. I'm from the Department of Public Policy. Right now, a lot of people talk about the impact of OTT on tentpole films. About a decade ago, they were talking about the impact of multiplex films on tentpole films. So, as a producer, how do you see the impact of OTT on main screen, single screen, large cinema versus the earlier sort of dynamics of multiplex films on large screens? Is it the same? Have things changed? Thank you.
See, I'm a minority in this situation, but for against what most people think. But I don't think there's a differentiator. A story will be seen. Even 10 years back, every movie that got seen was for every one person who finally saw it in a theater, 9 more people saw it on television or whatever else. So today, anyway, that demographic is done. The cinema part is only the question of a bigness to it when it comes in there, but 9 out of 10 people are going to consume it elsewhere. I think the ability to take storytelling to the next level because of OTT platforms, when you don't have a 3-hour viewing experience with a 20-minute interval which frustrates you, when you don't have the ability of appointment viewing and you can do it whichever way you want to, you can tell stories in a very, very different manner. So I'm in a minority that says, actually there isn't a difference and a differentiator.
Hey, my name is Ish Ratnakar. I'm studying film in JSJC. I wanted to ask you, what kind of people do you not like to work with?
Yeah, well, top of the list is people who are closed-minded, have a self-opinionated view of themselves. And closed-minded means really closed-minded. I mean, this word humble means nothing in life because, and in many of our sectors, just saying sir doesn't mean humility by any sense of imagination. Let me be, and I know I'm talking here with professors, but that doesn't mean anything. In fact, so I think today, more than anything else, open-mindedness and arrogance are the 2 things that are guaranteed to let you down in life, whichever way you want to do that. And I think so that would be my big cross. Well, yeah, then the list goes on, but I would say these would be the top. Because from that, actually, a lot happens.
Good.
The only other thing I would say here is we spend too much time trying to impress people. So I think I get put off when somebody's constantly in pitching mode or in impression mode. Because what you see is what you get today is what really people need to get. So I'm not a presentation guy. I'd like to have a conversation with somebody which is on an even keel, and you can make out when somebody is actually trying to impress somebody. And that to me is 50% of our time we waste in life today, whether we like it or not, is what other people think. And I think, look, you're young and everyone has to go through that thought process, so it's not something that you're going to be able to flick a switch. But you'll realize when you take some tally 10 years down the line, how much time you've wasted trying to do things to impress other people versus just have your own conviction, because at the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters.
Good afternoon. I think so it's afternoon now. So, my name is Anandi. I'm from the School of Liberal Arts. And I wanted to ask you, do you really think that there should be education should be in a liberal arts format in other universities as well, whereas because of
conventional systems are no longer working in the real life. Do you really support that idea?
So I will answer this in a broader way, right? Because there are certain strong foundations. What is liberal arts? It's not necessarily the actual form of degree. It's making you think non-linear. It's making you think very, very differently. So today, what are we all learning for? To just think of non-linear thinking. I think a lot of education is linear thinking, but a lot of real life is non-linear thinking. And I think the ability to have a strong foundation in the aspects of creative innovation and any of those that happen there would make a huge difference to that.
I'll still come to you. The mic is there.
Hi, sir. I am Krishangi. I'm a master's student at Jindal School of International Affairs. My question to you is that although I think in the past decade we've seen that Bollywood is exploring a lot of new genres of movies, what genre do you think Bollywood still lacks and probably can work on in terms of, say, I mean, of course, we do have a lot of rom-coms or action movies, but what genre do you think we can still explore?
I think more and more the question of we haven't had, what the US has done extremely well outside of the Marvel and DC comics and the Star Wars situation is really talk about very relatable to the culture of what it is. Ours has been a lot more suspension of reality, and we need to get to, because today's audience is looking for that context. You don't mind having a bit of entertainment, but you want that context. And I think the second one is patriotism. I think today more than ever, the level of patriotism in the country has gone to the next level. I mean, to a huge level here from whatever points of view. Not just because you have one of the largest flags flying in your university, which is a great sense of pride. I want to take a photograph just because of that. So I think that whole element of national pride of what we do is very high, and I think that's a strong mode where. And the third one I think is in India we don't have icons yet. I think for the younger generation it's difficult to find absolute icons, and storytelling can build icons. You may not necessarily look up to that individual, but some traits in a story inspire something in you, and I think those genres are the ones that I think will connect big time with people.
Wow. Wait up. Okay, you ask a question.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Reva Makhija and I'm a student of the law school. Much like you, I also am a lover of cinema and I'm obsessed with law, and I also harbor entrepreneurial ambitions. I've been exploring options such as entertainment law and such, but what do you think I could, as a second-year student right now, do to reconcile those interests?
I think when you're getting out there to work in a what I would call a smaller law firm that doesn't just delegate and give you a lot more secretarial research work, if you're very clear about that, I think a specialization field is where you'll break out, right? Because the established law firms are much more broader in their index. But I think, and I know that because I had an in-house counsel. I think over the last 10 years, I've had 4 in-house counsels, and all 4 of them have now started their own law firms. And with a lot of support from us from that point of view. And now I'm stopped having in-house counsels because we've got there. So that's an incredible opportunity, because the good part about this for you is whatever you do in a law firm will have a narrow thing. And the minute you get into the broader spectrum, you grow up and you learn much more. So 3000% follow that track.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. Karthikeya, you asked. I'm going to let one more out there, and then I'm going to come to this side because there's a lot of hands going up.
Hello sir, my name is Karthikeya. I am a student in JSJC. I want to ask this, like right now there's like the South is kind of overtaking Bollywood, like Pathan is kind of an exception. And to me the reason is that, in Bollywood, like Karan Johar has spoken about this, he talks about like what he thinks about like where the film will appeal to. Like he thinks about the markets the films appeal to, such as NRI or the audience it appeals to, before he thinks about the idea. Whereas in the South, it seems to be opposite. Like they think of the idea first, and then they think about who it appeals to. Like obviously, Karan Johar thinks about it more as a producer, right? Whereas they think of it more as a creative endeavor. So I am saying, like, how do you solve that problem? Will it just continue and will it worsen? What do you see happening?
Yeah, no, I don't think it'll worsen. I don't think we should throw the complete book at Hindi cinema. I was just being candid about my points of view, but there's no such thing. People innovate, people change. And 1 year let's be very clear. There was inventory and movies ready post-COVID with South Indian cinema that wasn't ready with Bollywood also from that perspective. So I would not say this is a decline of some sorts. You're very right in your observation that some creative directors think with the producer and say, but that's their genre. They want to make family movies. They want to make, not family a la Disney family movies, but just family movies in a very different narrative of actually having family and the drama that goes on there, and that works. But I don't see this worsening. I see actually this will it'll push people to the hilt to rediscover and make. And there's a fair amount of that happening. The only challenge is that you're benchmarking success based on box office. And I'm saying benchmark it based on viewership. There's a lot of good Hindi cinema and a lot of good Hindi storytelling on OTT today, which is connecting even more. So you've got very strong series today that's connecting. It's the same people, same directors, same script writers who are making stories, whether it's Family Man or whether it's X or whether it's Y, that's connecting in a very different manner.
Trusha?
I must tell you, for all those who are thinking about South Indian films, I mean, as somebody who is from Tamil Nadu, I can tell you that most of our inspiration in films actually was from Malayalam film world, which is not sufficiently known at all. In fact, the most outstanding, intellectually engaging storytelling experiences are actually from Malayalam film. The kind of discourse that we're having about Bollywood versus South, this discourse had already happened with Malayalam films being the ones which are more superior and intellectually engaging, and Tamil and Telugu and all of them are more like what we might now think about Bollywood. So what Ronnie is saying is so true. There is an evolutionary dimension to it. But I must say that in that evolutionary dimension, historically, Malayalam films have always had a kind of a different perspective. They have captured reality in a very, I would say, with a lot of integrity and even probably low budget. Can we say that? Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add there. And look, I'm trying to address any of the movie questions with a context. As you can see, I'm trying desperately not to talk about the movie, but talk about what does that mean to you in real life. So the DNA of what one went about is, I'm an outsider to the Hindi film industry. Okay, I'm a Parsi guy, don't speak that kind of fluent Hindi that everyone else does. Didn't have a mama chacha in this sector, and just thought that if I wanted to build a global brand like UTV, without having a big screen part of outside of the fact that we had 10 broadcast channels, whatever else, I wouldn't be able to survive. So as an outsider, you start thinking things very differently. So we've always bucked the trend. And by bucking the trend, you manage to come out with a lot more. If you look at Rang De Basanti, which is spoken about here, at that time when that film was greenlit, it had nothing going for it, right? I mean, there were 3 Bhagat Singh movies that had come 2 years before that, all had flopped big time. Here is where there is no female heroine in the movie, a little bit of Soha, but mostly none. No real songs, though the music turned out very good, but no real romantic songs, and all the heroes die at the end. Now, if you look at that formula for green lighting, it is extremely counterintuitive. So you need to have a very strong insight of what the audience you think is pulsating for, rather than going with that. And I think that's the learning for you. You've got to be able to go against the grain and the pulse if you want to make something really good. Even the movie we made just recently called Uri Surgical Strike, right? I mean, at that point in time, Vicky Kaushal was not an actor. The last movie he made with us, he didn't talk to me for 2 months because I put it on OTT, and he wanted to be on a large screen. So to take that and take it to the next level, counterintuitiveness is really very, very critical. And it's in every sector, in anything that you do, the greater the rewards will come from being counterintuitive.
I'm going to take... Yeah, so I'm going to take a few questions from here, those who have raised their hands, and then I'm going to come out there to you, and that's it. We'll have time. Trisha, and keep your questions really brief.
I'll be as quick as I can because we've already met. I'm one of the faculty that was there. I'm Trisha. I teach writing. I'm a professor of practice at the journalism school. But I did want to follow up on some of the things that actually Raj and you were talking about, and I wondered whether you would say how you think of the difference, if you do, between the two of these sectors that you work in, the media or cinema in one, and education, and whether you see them as being, because I see them, I think, as being somewhat different from each other in terms of perhaps the idea of consumers, and whether one can actually think about students in the same way as consumers. And I suppose it kind of links to Malayalam cinema, why Malayalam cinema perhaps spoke a different language, why it was able to, and so on. I'll keep that question there.
So if I get your question, I think is what you're saying is you can't look at a student as a consumer. Do you all agree?
I wonder. I wonder what you think.
I mean, yes
what
and no.
to what
And
extent?
the answer to that is a yes and no, right? At
Yes.
the end of the day, you're choosing a career. You've come here to choose law. Okay, so something in your impact, either it's your family background or something else or something that you felt was a career option. So at the end of the day, to a certain extent, the answer is yes. The normal thing would be because college and school is such a calendared event in your life, and you feel therefore this is sort of preordained for you, and after that everything else, you're a consumer with optionality. The only difference where I would put it is your consumer has optionality, and you're thinking of, no, a student doesn't have optionality. And I would just leave that thought with you, where, because if you feel that, I don't think it's a nomenclature, but I do believe that at the end of the day, when you're looking at a consumer, to me, the consumer is because I feel lifelong learning is here to stay. And therefore, once you're a working professional, you don't look at yourself as a student, but you're going to need to upgrade. And there we need to understand what are the careers of tomorrow, what are the trends, what is everyone going to go for.
Sure. I think I meant more in terms of your positioning as social responsibility and so on. But that's fine.
No, that's fine. Social responsibility in terms of?
As in the difference that you would make between being in the sector of cinema and media and being in the sector of education. Would you treat yourself, your role as an entrepreneur in these sectors quite differently?
I would say no. And that's because that's how I've lived at in that sense. I took media not superficially and fun and glamorous. I treated that with gravitas, and I treat this with gravitas. And I think that's the best way I can answer that, as much as the social sector in Swades is with gravitas.
Thank you. No, I
Sana?
appreciate that.
You raised your hand later.
Okay.
Okay, can we do that? Okay. We'll take 3 questions together, like a bouquet of questions.
Okay. So my question.
Meaning one for you.
Yeah. 1 question, and we'll take 3 questions.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm Sanya, and I'm a film student in Jindal. So my question is, in the 1950s and 1960s, this happened to American cinema too. The hyper commercialization and production houses approaching films like products, right? I think that's what happened to Bollywood in the 1990s and the 2000s, because that's the formula that worked for them. But the thing is, that formula, that the Christianized films, they stopped working for Hollywood because people got more open-minded. I think the same thing's happening. I think I can draw a parallel between that and what's happening in Bollywood right now. People are getting more open-minded, so they don't really like traditionalized films anymore. So the thing is, in Hollywood, indie directors emerged, and like we got franchises, but franchises emerged to indie directors like Jaws and Star Wars. They used to be indie films before, because the change that happened was, instead of
Sana, what is the question? Just a question.
I want to one second. Yeah. So like how production houses started picking up indie directors to make films. Do you think something like that can happen in India too? And do you think that there are prospects for indie directors in India now?
Franchise, you're saying?
No, for indie directors to have more opportunities, because I can see that there are parallels between what's
So I just want to say, for all the badgering that we're doing for Hindi cinema, today we're still, for most countries globally, international cinema hasn't penetrated here. So it's still 15 to 20%. International cinema in most other places. And America loves it because they can syndicate their movies to 160 countries in the world, and they make a lot of money. But India is still a tough market for them. Barring an Avatar or barring a Marvel one, pretty much Indian cinema still is 20% international, whereas everywhere else it's 80% is international in any other place in the world. So we still have a strong local storytelling mode that is happening. Second, today onwards, look at cinema, and if you're in a film school and you're making stories for everyone else, accept the fact that the benchmark is not just going to be box office and the theatrical, but how many people see it across the life of the movie, and how evergreen is it. So I would say that we should stop focusing much more on this benchmark of this didn't work because the jury's out and it was a thumbs down. Because actually spending power, distraction, and many other aspects of consumerism has changed the way people want to consume movies. But they will watch it. So if you're making something, see that its story is evergreen and it can be seen across platforms, and you're going to do much better.
Read quick.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Reed, and I'm a second-year journalism student. Also, sir, I'm a huge fan of your work. So my question to you is that there has been a lot of controversy around the release of Pathaan, and we've seen this earlier as well with films like Padmavat and all. So the question that I'm wanting to ask is this: how do you think something like this hampers the creative abilities of a director or like a filmmaker?
Because of controversy.
Yeah.
See, I think controversy, firstly, is a media simulation. Sometimes and most times it actually helps the film from wherever you want to do. I want to tell you, Rangde Basanti was pretty much not getting released. We had to let the head of the armed forces, the Air Force, Navy, and this one, and the defense minister see the film. Because at that time, we had a problem because we were running down the fact that the only Russian aircrafts given to India, which is the MiGs, actually, I remember that because we had a screening and the head of the Air Force said, look, I think you've made a very honest movie. Every month, 4 or 5 mothers call me of their sons and they risk their life because they're flying MiG planes. After your movie, I think 100 mothers are going to call me, but please go ahead and release the movie. So I think that to me speaks a lot of what we necessarily want to do, and that to me was controversy. And then we had Maneka Gandhi who said Amir Khan ride a horse because cruelty to animals. So there was, in that 4 weeks, controversy only helps situations. In Jodha Akbar, they stopped us from shooting in Rajput because they said there isn't a Jodha and there isn't an Akbar. So I think that's going to happen. We're 1.4 billion people. we're a practicing democracy, thank God, in many ways. And I think therefore we'll be able to say what we want to say.
Rishti, I'm coming to you, but she's not going to forgive me if I don't let her ask a question. She's been raising her hand. Without the microphone, can you shout your question here?
No, I think that experience, it's not a single one because we're doing that with almost everything that we're doing just. Today we are just completed a movie on Jaswant Singh, which was at that time in the 1985 Punjab riots that happened there where almost 26,000 Sikhs were eliminated with the police force there. It's a very controversial movie. 4 people from the censor board and now the government want to watch it. You have to have your conviction. You're making something which you're clean. It's not political. It's not Kashmir Files. It's something that you have a message. You'll go out and say what you want to say. And you're clean about giving it the right balance, and then you go for it. Now, whether it could be in women empowering rights, which is what you're referring to in some aspects, or any other reality, I think it's too important a medium to cow down.
Rishti, quick.
I'm going to keep it very short. Hi, my name is Rishti Lakanpal. I'm second year also from JSJC doing journalism. We started talking about ethical cinema in the beginning and about how UTV has propagated ethical cinema by, being an organized production house. So I was wondering about the workplace environment for aspiring and young filmmakers. And where do you think that's headed with more and more organized production houses?
No, it's headed very well.
She really wants to say internships.
No, placements, actually.
No, it's a really good place. I don't think you should be worried about at all, as compared to anywhere else or whatever else. Absolutely none. You should not even for a minute have a thought process that because this is a glamour industry and because it has some connotation, because once or twice you would read that in any other industry, any other office, any other sector.
Okay, the gentleman on the T-shirt up there, he was, after that, I don't know whether we have enough time.
5 minutes max.
Okay, 5 minutes. Okay, I'm going to...
Good afternoon. My name is Udavir. I'm an economics major at the Government Policy School. And I'm a complete newbie to Bollywood, but I know for a fact you've worked in a large variety of movies. And 2 of them in particular, like Haider and Delhi Belly, right? And they weren't the safest of bets while they were being made, I'm assuming. And I'm assuming you foresaw that. And I wanted to ask you, especially with this current political situation around cinema, we're all very well aware of that. I wanted to ask you, what was the X factor that kept you pushing through the movies to get them out?
So the X factor in Haider was definitely the fact that we were setting it in Kashmir, Vishal Bhardwaj has done a lot of films with us. He has a very strong way to tell a story. So the X factor was how we were telling a story in Kashmir without it getting controversial through the eyes of a character. And I think what was the other movie you said was Delhi Belly. Yeah, I think that's a new breaking out in normal conventional Johnny Lever kind of comedy. We wanted to get it where three characters, very young, very relatable, very bindas, just living in their own world. And comedy of errors happens to all of us in life. Whatever we do that, sometimes we get embroiled in something which doesn't happen. So the X factor there was really the actual script and the very down-to-earthness of telling a story of very relatable characters.
Yes, ma'am. Oh,
okay.
Gopal, go ahead.
So I'm Gopal, first year from journalism school, JSJC, doing journalism. So my question is, in 2011, you created this movie called Chiller Party. It was one of the most Chiller Party.
Chiller Party.
Chiller Party. Sorry. Yes. Okay.
It is one of the most inspiring movies for me and for hundreds of kids in India. So how was it working with a bunch of kids and making them like wearing underwears in the street? It was one of the
I'm
movies
glad the
which
movie got
inspired
noticed because at that time it didn't get noticed, but I'm glad it got noticed afterwards. But the director, actually, that director is one of the most down-to-earth directors. After that, he did a movie with us called Dangal, which before Pathan was the largest grossing movie. And it still remains actually the largest grossing movie. After Pathan, before Pathan, after Pathan also Dangal is the largest movie because in China, we did 1,800 crores of box office in just China on that movie Dangal. So when you combine it worldwide, it's still one of the ones. But Nitesh Tiwari, who was the director there, he just came to us with a very, very simple story. But it was a dog, it was a lot of kids, and it was a cooperative housing society. So it just sounds very endearing. But it's not something you would go to the theater to watch. And that's why to many of you all who are putting your benchmarks, good stories today is not now about where your platform is. It can be on multiple platforms. So keep that in mind when you're looking at any narrative you want to make.
He's not just responsible for Chiller, but he's responsible for some of the stuff that you grew up with, Shing Shang and Doraemon. Yeah, he imported that to India.
When we started a channel called Hangama, and we yes, so we started a channel called Hangama, and at that time, Cartoon Network, Disney, Nickelodeon, everyone was there, and everyone told us, why are you starting a channel? And then when we imported these two, my wife actually was the creative head of the channel and the CEO of the channel, and she said, I'm going to Japan to shop for. She came back with Shin-Chan and Doraemon. And since then, even after we've sold the company, I still have mothers calling me and saying, you're the one who's spoiled our kids.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Pinky Mathur. I teach in the law school. Now, I want to understand from you, how serious, in your opinion, is Bollywood cinema today about doing it right by gender? I'm not talking about film that is specifically made to break gender stereotypes and, put forward the agenda of gender justice. But generically, if you are making a film which has nothing really to do with the theme of gender, how serious would you be, or your colleagues, or others working with you, to ensure that gender is projected in the right way?
I think by and large it is. I have to tell you very categorically that by and large it is. I mean, we did with Madhur Bhandarkar, we did two movies called Fashion and Heroine, which had the gender. Today we're doing, with Kangana playing an Air Force pilot, when we're doing a movie called Tejas. We've done a fair amount of those, but it's not just us. The overall sector and industry does have that. I don't think we have gone into, unless you have some specifics that you have in mind.
No, I mean for cinema that is not being created, the particular film that's not being created keeping gender in mind, specifically with that theme. So it's a mainstream cinema which has 100 different things to do.
No, but I think that's the fallacy that we all believe in, that you want to have gender equality and you can't do it in main cinema, so let's do it in niche. Actually, that's the beginning of the end.
So even for mainstream cinema, you would be serious about it?
Yeah,
right?
I
Projecting
think
it right?
Absolutely.
All right.
I'm sorry, guys. We ran right out of time. He's got to fly back. And one last question, if I may, Ronnie, is that if you were to cast Raj for a character, what would it be?
Mocambo? Sorry?
Actually, I got a message from I was just, my wife is a lawyer and group general counsel for a private equity firm, went to Oxford and Harvard like me. She asked me, how's Ronnie's visit? And then she says, don't forget my role in a movie, a small cameo. So everybody is thinking, and there are some of our faculty members also looking for roles here, so I will have to defer to them first, yeah.
Thank you so much, Ronnie.
Thank you.
Really. And thanks for coming. And here's a small memento for you.
Online.